Okay, everybody, and hello. It is Shepard here with slightly different content. Monster Hunter fans, this game is Phantasy Star Online 2, New Genesis. Should have been called Phantasy Star Online 3. You don't have to have played Phantasy Star Online 2 at all. It is free to play. It's on Xbox and PC. So if you're taking a break from Rise, like I am a little bit, could be worth checking out. As for everyone else, this is going to be a guide. I'm going to go into what it took to get to level 15 with a fresh character and not a ton of experience in New Genesis before. I've played Phantasy Star Online before, but that was on the Dreamcast. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some traps you don't want to get into. And second, we're going to go into when you need to raise your battle power, which is a stat that is used to gate you from the storyline progression. Some good ways to do that. And then finally, we'll talk a little bit about the classes. There's some really in-depth overviews out there, so I'm not going to go crazy into it. But for new players, people that are looking to check the game out, should be a lot of good information in here that could end up saving you possibly hours of grinding that you otherwise would not need to do. So the main thing, and if there's one thing I could tell you before you click out of this video that you absolutely do not want to do, is you do not want to waste your money. So early on in the game, you could wander around the world map and you'll run into these red chests out in the area, and you'll find like 10,000 Meseta, occasionally 25,000 Meseta, and you're like, wow, money's just everywhere in this game. I guess I'll just buy whatever. And that is the biggest trap in the game. So ways that I've wasted Meseta that I really want to make sure you do not waste Meseta. So upgrading your weapon in this game is one of the primary ways that A, you will get stronger, and B, you will increase your battle power. One of the ways I wasted money early on was wanting to upgrade my weapon. I'm like, hey, I get slightly increased experience on my weapon if I meld the same thing. I'm using the Savaya sword. I would recommend everyone else who's starting use the equivalent Savaya weapons. They have a better power later on that you're going to want to use as opposed to the Prim weapons. And so I just would buy these and jam them into my weapon. And early on, money was plentiful. But the issue is when you get in later into the game, not only does that money dry up, I'm basically spending money on something I could easily find that would be the equivalent of being able to upgrade my weapon 2.5 times when it gets close to the max level, when you're close to level 12 and level 13. So no matter what you do, do not buy weapons. If you absolutely want to buy something, and again, would hesitate to recommend even this, you can buy Savaya weapons from other players that are putting them up on the market right now. And as we can see, there are 20 plus Savaya swords that you could buy for 1,000. And that might be worth it. You have to keep in mind, every time you do a trial out in a PSE burst area, which might come up about once every 5 minutes or so, depending on how fast your group is clearing it, you get 1,000 Meseta. It trickles in. So you certainly don't want to waste your money there. Second big thing, and this is maybe one of the most crippling, crushing ways that I wasted money, and I am very upset that I did it. When it came time and you unlock your multi-weapon, which happens a little bit after the ruins area, I put in the wrong type of weapon. I needed to have a rod, and I put in a wand. So not only did that cost me 20 quartz that I then had to farm up, I then needed to find like 40,000 more Meseta at that weapon level to get it in again. Which was like, several hours of trying to get that money back. So main two ways to save money, don't go crazy buying weapons at the item shop over here, unless you're buying them from another player at a very discounted price. Be very careful with the upgrades you're doing here. I would even recommend, if you have an idea what your main weapon is going to be, don't spend any Meseta on anything other than that main weapon to start with. In the long run, you can get pretty decent money doing your weekly quests. You can see here 100,000 is available once we get up to the point where we can clear that urgent quest. Likewise, once you do about 4 days worth of daily tasks, you can get 200,000 Meseta, and suddenly things are looking a little bit more calm, but even still, that money will go pretty quickly. So in terms of increasing your battle power based on your armor, early on you only have a choice between 2 different types. You have the Prim armor, which is the cheaper starting armor types, and you've got the Savaya armor. Prim armor occasionally will drop pretty commonly with this Fix-It Enthusiast on there. I do have one piece of my armor set equipped with that. However, we can see here, even at max level with 2 augments on, it still ends up being 5 battle power short compared to the Savaya armor. So assuming you want to do the least amount of grinding possible, and especially if you're playing a class that doesn't have as big of an issue managing its PP, maybe consider going full Savaya armor. Another way of increasing battle power is, of course, going to these various cocoons around the map and getting skill points and investing them in both your main and your subclass. One thing you can do before getting close to the 1100 battle power breakpoint, though, is this Altar's Rush here. Altar's Rush has just a couple slightly weaker monsters. So assuming you're around level 12, and especially if you're in a party of 2, 3, or even 4 people, you should have no issue clearing this. And then this is nice because you not only just get 1 skill point, you get 4 skill points. And this is basically the last thing I did before I was able to get to the Rezal Forest and finally crack the 1100 battle power breakpoint. In all likelihood, that will not be the entirety of what you'll need to do. You will need to eventually roll some augments onto your weapons as well as your armor in order to finally get over that hill. What you add isn't that important. You could always re-roll over it. Obviously, putting things that increase weapon potency is nice, but you're going to get so many augments early on that are going to be used for being able to increase your life and your PP, and they're nice early on. But worst case scenario, if you're using it later on, you want to roll a better augment on, you can always replace it, and it's really not that big of a deal. Okay, big way to get a lot of experience quickly as you're going through on your first main class is make sure to talk to the guards that are at the city gates. So the guard on the west side for exercise 1, the guard on the east side for exercise 2 will then be used at the laboratory ruins as soon as you cleared that. 50,000 experience is a lot of experience. And again, I know I said level is not a huge determinant of your battle power, but it is important to be able to actually damage monsters later on. So when you're trying to get through specifically this tower up here, being like close to around level 12 or so is kind of nice. Otherwise, as you're trying to get materials to upgrade your weapon, as well as maybe a little bit extra money that you'll need, pretty much grinding out at the laboratory ruins is really fine until you go into the Rezal Forest. You don't need to spend a lot of time wandering around the world. Some people said that they, were able to find in the large 32-man areas groups that are willing to kill, they were like veteran bosses to get higher star level weapons. It's not necessary. It may be something that you end up doing in the late game, and if you're lucky enough to find a group that wants to do that, maybe you're in an alliance and they're willing to do that to help you out, it could be very beneficial. Otherwise, it's not really necessary at all. Okay, last bit is just to talk a little bit about how the class system in the game works. So the way you want to think about your class system is your main class is the class that you want to use based on whatever main class skills that you want to use. Right now I'm doing Tector Hunter. I do Tector first because I want to be able to use Shift a D-band as well as have the rest of field. I play mostly solo, not necessarily by choice, but I don't necessarily want to get tied down by a group all the time. So Shift a D-band is a great buff. It works great for me. If I happen to be around other people, they get improved as well. And then Resta also will help other people as well. And then I have various other things. I actually get magic, so being able to exploit elemental weaknesses is something that I derive personal pleasure out of. And so, it benefits the Hunter a little bit. The Hunter doesn't really have any ranged attacks at all. So this will kind of help me zone enemies at slightly less damage per second, but still be able to deal damage to them. Your subclass is a class that maybe it doesn't have great main class skills. So the Hunter in particular is a very tanky class. but it doesn't really help you deal damage all that much as a main class. As a subclass, though, it gives you access to the sword, the wire, the Volcraptor. Those sort of things are really fun weapons to play with. I've been using the sword particularly because I enjoy being able to do sword counters. Sword counters are a lot of fun. It's a way that makes the already fast combat in this game feel more satisfying and more rewarding. So Tector, Hunter makes a lot of sense. Other people, if you want to be all-out offense, you don't want to necessarily have access to any sort of magic skills, going fighter, maybe with Hunter as a sub in order to keep yourself a little bit more tanky. The fighter is great to deal lots of damage, but you end up taking a lot of damage yourself. Could be a good choice. Between Gunner and Ranger, having the Gunner with a Hunter subclass to kind of be used to have your sword as your multi-weapon to finish off your combos could be very nice. Or just fighter with Ranger or Gunner and Hunter below. Ranger has the Blight round. He'll make one shot, one area on a monster weak. So if you want to be able to cause weakness on a monster and then either have a good ranged option with them or even a melee subclass to deal up-close damage for large downs, it's a possibility. Force is really there for like major amounts of PP uptime. So I haven't had any PP issues. But if you have PP issues, you could go main Force and then one of the subclasses that is particularly PP intensive. Gunner might be PP intensive, Fighter might be PT intensive. I don't really know, but if you worry about your PP, I think that's where Force is the best main class. Okay, so that's it for now. Don't waste your money. Try and use weapons that you get from PSE bursts to make your enhancements as efficient as possible so you're not wasting money there. Make sure to find all these cocoons that you can, and then once you're ready, do this tower to get your skill points up. And you should have a very easy coast to about 12 or so, and you'll be at the battle power level necessary to just go right in and then do the quest to complete the Resolve Forest. And then once you're at level 14 or so, once you finish that, you're pretty much at the end game. You'll have completed the majority of the story content and you're ready to start going into the post game. And, playing around with your character more, maxing out your main character, or as you start getting money from the daily and weekly quests, maybe even considering getting into doing some other main classes and leveling them up in that way. Oh, and I do stream every day over at twitch.tv/SDShepherd. If you like the game, just starting it out, want some other tips not in this video, come by. I will be happy to help.